Good morning. Another set of great pictures from across this United States of America. Good morning. Glad to see you.
Good morning.
Good morning, everybody.
Good to see you guys.
I know it feels like it's a little bit of a reunion.
A little bit.
Post-Thanksgiving reunion.
Post-Thanksgiving.
I kept it together here for you guys.
Good.
Kept the seats warm.
Watched you.
Yes.
A little bit.
Sure.
Good job.
Sure you did.
Sure. The 9 o'clock hour. Maybe not this
maybe
hour.
9, yeah, maybe 9.
A little bit.
But I'm glad y'all were home with your families, and that's a wonderful thing.
It was an awesome time. Great to be home. A lot of soccer tournaments, a lot of shooting guns, a lot of outside time, like everybody else. A lot of eating and drinking. Quitting every vice, though. It's turned a new leaf a little bit early.
I'm proud of you.
Before January.
Why don't you just tell everybody the vice that you're...
I quit. People don't understand it, so I don't like talking about it. It's nicotine, but I don't smoke. I don't dip. I used to dip. It's just tobacco-less nicotine, but I'm off. I'm off it.
He's off for now, okay? he cold turkey, we're all proud of him, but I don't believe it.
That's the way to beat an addiction. It's like, not this weaning stuff, just
boom.
Done.
Yeah, just be moody as can be for a week. Just deprive yourself and ruin all your relationships.
Now that I know why you might be moody on the show, I'm going to totally give you a pass. Yes.
You're going to be nice all morning long?
I'm going to be nice all morning long.
Well, 4 hours, you keep track.
3 minutes in, we'll see how that goes.
All right.
Whether that holds. It's good to see you. Welcome, and we've got the beginning of 8 full hours over today and tomorrow. But we start with this. A major shakeup on Capitol Hill. Congress voting to expel George Santos yesterday after a House investigation.
That's right. Now New York Governor Kathy Hochul is looking to hold a special election to fill his seat.
Alexandria Hoff is in Washington this morning with the latest. Good morning, Alexandria.
Well, good morning to you three. Yeah, the governor had to clear up some confusion on this. It's up to party leaders in New York to choose the candidates who are going to be part of the swing district special election. But at first, some thought that Governor Hochul's statement indicated that she alone would be choosing Santos's replacement. She stated, quote, "I am prepared to undertake the solemn responsibility of filling the vacancy in New York's 3rd district by scheduling a special election. The people of Long Island and Queens deserve nothing less." So her role there will be scheduling, and that special election for New York's 3rd district seat is likely to take place mid to late February. After that vote to expel logged 311 in favor, 114 noes, and 2 present votes. It far exceeded the 2/3 necessary. Santos slipped out before voting concluded. It was an embarrassing end to a House Ethics Committee investigation that found Santos had used campaign funds for personal purposes and engaged in fraudulent conduct. Within hours, the House changed the locks to Santos's office and removed his nameplate. He becomes only the 6th member of the House and the first Republican ever to be expelled. Santos said here that he expected it, but believes it sets a dangerous precedent.
If it's their choice to change precedent and loop me in with 3 Confederate turncoats who were expelled for treason and 2 convicted members who were convicted in a court of law, so I'll be the first person to get expelled from Congress without a conviction or without committing treason. And it sets dangerous new precedent for the future to come. It's the demise of this body eventually.
Well, Republicans and even Democratic Senator John Fetterman are now saying that Democratic Senator Bob Menendez of New Jersey has to be expelled next. He is charged with being a foreign agent. And interestingly, Menendez's son, who is a House member, voted yesterday to expel Santos. Guys.
All right. Thank you, Alexandria.
Thank you, Alexandria.
Pretty shocking video, pretty shocking statement coming from Senator John Fetterman. There's people have been speculating, did they run a body double out for John Fetterman?
Yeah.
Has there been a... So, you'd be forgiven because he's making a lot of sense. Yeah, and he's showing integrity.
Hey, whatever drugs they're giving this guy, get him to Joe.
Get him to Joe Biden. I love it. Can we, before we move on to the Menendez part, can I just read you, this is a tweet from Sean Davis from The Federalist. Because the priorities, and we're going to have the Speaker of the House on later in the show, the priorities of the Republican House in terms of trying to get rid of this guy, Santos, when they have so many other things to worry about, including the fact that they have such a slim majority in the House. Why this was prioritized, I don't know. This is from Sean Davis. He says, if Hunter Biden showed up on the House floor and smoked a blunt, rolled with Chinese yuan notes, that he got as a bribe for getting his dad to the Chi-Cons, while at the same time Eric Swalwell did, you know what, in the cloakroom with Fang Fang, you know, and he goes on to talk about, you know, Tlaib and all the other things. He says House Republicans would respond by sending another $150 billion to Ukraine and launching an investigation into Matt Gaetz or Marjorie Taylor Greene. There's a lot of people that feel like this, that like, what the heck are your priorities?
Yeah, we'll get a chance to ask the new speaker about that on the program, as you mentioned. Yeah, I mean, he was a reliable vote for Republicans at a time when they need it. He's not running for re-election. It was the Democrats that brought it forward, but ultimately it was a lot of Republican votes that voted to expel him.
And he didn't have gold bars in his closets. I mean, he
was formerly known as the Brazilian drag queen, Katira Rabache.
I mean, he's a joker.
Dems evicted a Brazilian drag queen from the White House is really the headline.
I mean, the point isn't Santos. I mean, he's a joke. But the point is the process. Like, first of all, he's not convicted of anything.
Exactly.
He's only, and if we're going to go down this, this is the path. Anyone accused, indictments are brought against.
Right.
Well, let's get going. Guess we got a lot to go.
Well, as you mentioned, a man who brought a little bit of sense to this issue on The View, which is not normally a place where you find that. It's a deadly combination here. Senator John Fetterman, Democrat from Pennsylvania, here he is talking about, well, somebody else. Watch.
We have a colleague in the Senate that actually did much more sinister and serious kinds of things. Senator Menendez, he needs to go. And if you are going to expel Santos, how can you allow to somebody like Menendez to remain in the Senate? And, you know, Santos's kind of lies were almost, you know, funny. And like, you know, he, you know, landed on the moon and that kind of stuff. Whereas, you know, I think, you know, Menendez, I think, is really a senator for Egypt, you know, not New Jersey. So I really think he needs to go.
He's right.
Menendez
is a senator for Egypt. We were just talking about how Santos, you know, not great stuff, but kind of endearing guy.
No. It's not what we said. Said his lies were ridiculous and over the top.
He's a cartoon.
Yes.
I know. There was something fun about it. It's not
funny.
It's
funny
and fun, but it's not exactly like what you see with Menendez, where you have a foreign government, you have gold bars in your wife's closets. We don't know how many other bribes. And by the way, Menendez's track record goes back, you know, all the way to, you know, prostitutes in Dominican Republic. I mean, like, this is not a small thing.
Santos went out making the point, if you want to get rid of the crooks in Congress, then you better look around. Yeah. And you go with Swalwell, and you go with Schiff, and you go with, you know, Rashida Tlaib. I mean, you go down the list, there's plenty of people that could be due for that kind of treatment. But we'll see. I don't feel like it sets a precedent, though. I guess I'm a little bit of an outlier on that, because you need 2/3 votes. Very rarely are you going to get members of your own party to expel a reliably voting member.
It's just unbelievable that Mayorkas isn't being held accountable for lies that actually impact this country. And that's not the priority. They can't get themselves together to put him, get him impeached, but they find time for Santos.
You know, honestly, in the end, Jesse Waters said this yesterday on The Five. He's out because he's embarrassing. Like, the lying, the cheating, and the stealing, those are common denominators, you know? Jesse, if you're going to do it the way everybody else does it. Do it in some sophisticated fashion. Set up shell companies. Take money from the Chinese through your son. Don't be just taking campaign funds to get Botox.
It's true.
Yeah.
He's a little too out and about. As we mentioned, later in the program, we're going to have a couple people that can answer some of these questions for us. The Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, will be here, as well as Representative Elise Stefanik, the House GOP Conference Chair. They'll both be on this program, on this set, at 7:30. We look forward to talking to them.
Great. All right, well, moving on, we have House Democrats are telling Hillary Vaughn, who they think the nominee will be for in the future. Like, they're saying, do you guys have a plan B or not? And here's what they had to say.
The Democratic Party should have a plan B if something were to happen and President Joe Biden had to drop out of the race.
I mean, the same thing. I think the Republicans might have to have a plan B just in case Donald Trump has to drop out of the race due to all the federal charges. But we're not going to have plan B. It's all plan A. It's going to be Joe Biden.
The Democratic Party says they don't have a plan B if something were to happen and President Biden were to drop out of the race. Do you think that that's a good strategy not to have a plan B?
No party has a plan B. I mean, he's the president. I fully expect him to be our nominee and to win.
But he's also the oldest president ever. So the obvious question is, if something were to happen, I mean, should Democrats kind of put a plan in place now if something were to happen?
Did Ronald Reagan, when he was the oldest president ever, have a plan B? I mean, I just don't think that's how elections happen. He's our president. He's our nominee, and he's fully going to run a vigorous campaign and win.
So no plan B.
Well, they do have a plan B. They do. Officially, it's Kamala Harris. I mean, that's what they have to sell the American people.
That's not their plan B, and you know that.
Well, okay, it's like I'm trying to, on the fly, come up with a good analogy here. If I'm going into a store and I'm buying something and it has an insurance policy, I have to take it at face value that you're selling me this insurance policy. And the insurance policy for Joe Biden is Kamala Harris. So, I mean...
But it's not.
Okay, so what are you saying? They're just not willing to say we're about to replace him with Gavin Newsom?
I think, for one, having Joe Biden not be with it and decline a little bit for them is not a problem. I mean, Obama is in charge. So the worse Biden gets, the less in charge he is, the more in charge Obama is. That's fine with all of these progressives. But in the end, they know they can't win if something does happen with Joe Biden, with Kamala Harris. So I think, Gavin Newsom appears to be stepping into that role. And I think they have, as I call, the trump card, which is Michelle Obama.
It shows you the power of, to your point, Rachel, the Obama-Biden world.
Yes.
They have access to power. They're not going to give it up lightly. Joe's a, strong-headed guy who got to the top and is not. He may be old and he may have lost, more than lost his fastball, but there's no. I don't see the plan B. Then
it is Kamala Harris.
I don't.
What I mean,
no, it's not. It's Joe as long as humanly possible.
Okay,
with her as
well, we're not communicating correctly here. Joe Biden is a broken down lawn chair that's about to hit the ground, and anyone with eyes can see it.
Correct.
I'm not talking about whether or not he's a vessel for Obama.
Mm-hmm.
I'm talking about physically, he's 80-something years old, and the likelihood of him dying on the job is much greater than zero.
It seems they don't care.
Okay, then it's Kamala Harris. Now, you can tell me, they're still going to control Kamala behind the scenes with Obama. But when you go to the voters and any real person thinking goes, that dude, I don't think he's going to make it through a second term. And you have to consider that. Then the plan B you're selling me is Kamala. And so
that's the argument the Republicans will have to make.
They have to make that because the voter has to see that. You are voting for Kamala Harris. That is what you are voting for.
Unless he lives 5 more years and you're not. And that's the argument they would make.
And there's a chance that happens, but
there are 3 very powerful people that want Joe Biden to stay in there. Barack Obama, Joe Biden, who doesn't want to give up power, and Jill Biden, who is really...
But they're not God, and they can't keep him alive.
Well, they're going to do it. They're going to do it as long as they can, because this is how the entire Obama cabal, Susan Rice, Valerie Jarrett, Axelrod, all of them, this is the easiest way to keep control. You put Newsom in, he may not do what you want.
Yeah, but what I wonder is how much of this is actually chaos behind the scenes. We talk about a plan or what
it is.
We like to think there's an architect back there, but there's probably a lot of hand-wringing, a lot of speculation. Sure. What do we do? Relationships with different political camps matter. Like, I don't know how connected the Obama-Biden team is to Gavin Newsom. Do they not like him, or do they have a good relationship? Do they like the fact that he defends them but tepidly in public, in that debate? Who knows? So,
and to the point I'm making, they don't want the American people voting as a referendum on Kamala Harris. They don't want that to be acknowledged as the plan B, because she got 1% in the Democratic primary.
I know.
She would be rejected. So that's why Gavin Newsom's lurking. He'd like to be plan B, and he may just well be.
Yeah. We'll play a quick clip. I don't think we have a quick clip. We just have the clip of that debate between DeSantis and Gavin Newsom where he thread that needle. Watch.
So I was talking to a fella who had made the move from California to Florida, and he was telling me that Florida is much better governed, safer, better budget, lower taxes, all this stuff. And he's really happy with the quality of life. And then he paused and he said, by the way, I'm Gavin Newsom's father-in-law. So we do count Gavin's in-laws as some of the people that have fled California.
I can handle it. I'm used to bully. You're nothing but a bully.
You're a bully.
I understand that. intimidating and humiliating people.
You know, California does have freedoms that some people don't, that other states don't. You have the freedom to defecate in public in California. You have the freedom to pitch a tent on Sunset Boulevard. You have the freedom to create a homeless encampment under a freeway and even light it on fire.
There's one thing in closing that we have in common is neither of us will be the nominee for our party in 2024.
We have to get real here. We have to understand that Biden is not a job. He has no business running for president. And, you know, Gavin Newsom agrees with that. He won't say that. But that's why he's running his shadow campaign.
Well, I will take Joe Biden at 100 versus Ron DeSantis any day of the week at any age.
What did you guys think about this debate?
Well, I have a lot of thoughts, but I heard what you said.
I do. I think Gavin Newsom, if you were a Democrat, is very likable, and he's very good. I think he's the lying, the ability to lie, and yet sort of keep that smile and that slickness. It's really, he's on par with Bill Clinton in his ability.
No way.
I do. I believe it.
I'm sort of with Rachel. I think he's good, and he's pathological. No, he's pathological.
Yes,
but
pathological.
He's smooth in a way that comes off as affable.
Yes.
Oh man.
Agreed.
Okay, here's my position. He was really effective. He is a polished, slick, really good liar.
Agreed.
Pathological, sociopathic.
That's what we just said.
I agree.
That does not come off as likable.
No,
not likable. Not. And I've got harsher words that I'm not supposed to say on TV. The question is whether or not the casual voter looks at that.
That's right. That's it.
Not said likability. It may matter, but this goes, that guy, he sounds like he knows what he's talking about. Even though, because he's authoritative, but I don't know. But likable, his risk is he's too polished, too slimy, too slick, too much of a word I wish I could say.
I know exactly what we're
I don't know. I want to hear this word on the commercial break.
You know what he is.
You know it.
Okay. Don't think I do.
I'll give you a letter hint, but not right now. All right, let's go to some headlines before we get in trouble, and we'll start with this one. Los Angeles police officers believe the deaths of 3 homeless people this past week are connected. They're now warning people sleeping on the streets not to sleep alone. The LAPD says all 3 victims were alone in a public area at the time. Officers captured this image of the suspect. They believe he left each scene in a dark sedan. And a federal judge denying 2 motions to dismiss former President Trump's ongoing 2020 election interference case. Trump arguing that presidential immunity should protect him from the case and that his First Amendment rights were violated. U.S. District Judge Tanya Chutkan rejecting both motions, writing, quote, whatever immunities a sitting president may enjoy, that position does not confer a lifelong get-out-of-jail-free pass. The former president and current 2024 frontrunner for the Republicans still faces 4 felony charges in the case. And now to college football. Oregon and Washington facing off in would be the last ever Pac-12 title game? Correct. Yes, this is the title game of title games. The Huskies stopping a late game comeback attempt by the Ducks in the 4th quarter. Topping Oregon 34-31, taking home the Pac-12 championship, making them the permanent Pac-12 champions.
Yeah, and in the college football playoff.
In the playoffs.
Most likely. Well. I mean, undefeated. You're in.
The Huskies now find themselves in a good spot, and the Michigan Wolverines are another one of those teams looking to lock in a playoff spot as they take on the Iowa Hawkeyes. Tonight in the Big Ten Championship, coverage begins at 6:30 p.m. Eastern on
It's a huge day.
Fox.
That's all I'll be doing today. All the championship games today. And you got to game this out, like Texas beats Oklahoma State. What happens in Georgia, Alabama? I need Louisville to beat Florida State tonight. It's a huge day. Huge
So
day.
are you watching in your hotel room, or are you guys going to a bar?
We hadn't talked about it yet. I am going to be at a bar today.
We'll talk about it.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not that I don't want to spend time with you. I just have some things I have to do. I gotta sit. I gotta sit in my office.
He's busy.
Tight.
Wow, we just got dissed.
I got to check my calendar.
You know I got an extensive calendar.
All right, still ahead, California dreaming. Guess what? A boat of alleged illegal migrants washing ashore the swanky beach town of Malibu, more than 100 miles.
More than 100 miles from the southern border. And this comes as federal authorities are investigating a sunken boat found in the same area just one day later. Our next guest lives not too far from where it all happened. Gloria Romero is a former Democratic leader of the California State Senate, and she joins us now. Gloria, thank you for being with us this morning. I think for context, let's talk about Malibu. I mean, this is north of Los Angeles, so it's not as though this was, who knows where they launched from, but this is quite of a boat ride from Mexico.
Absolutely, but I think it reinforces that every community in America is a border state. Malibu, though, is particularly interesting. It is over 100 miles from the border, but it essentially is the Martha's Vineyard of California. It is a home of about 13,000 residents. Most people think about famous movie stars like Cher, who actually lives near this site and who has already promised to leave the country should a particular person be elected president of the United States. This is also a community that is a sanctuary city in a declared sanctuary state with very, very woke politics that has overwhelmingly voted for people like Gavin Newsom and Joe Biden. So I think the politics are going to hit up against the reality of what an open, unsecured border brought to you by Biden-Harris is doing to what really is a very affluent community right at the beach.
It's also a college town. I say that from experience. I went to Pepperdine, so there are parents from all across the country sending their 18-year-old to be on those beaches, hopefully not at that time of the night, but to go to school in that town. And instead, for now, at least in this instance, you see a boat full of illegal immigrants unloading right there on the beach. What message do you think? I mean, do you think it was accidental? Was it purposeful? Why did this boat land in Malibu?
I think it's brazen. I think it's calculated. I also think that it shows that these, and I believe they are human smugglers of these individuals coming across the border to work in vineyards, farms, landscaping, housing, etc. It's an open market, essentially. But I think it is very calculated. There is an understanding of the impacts of woke politics. And it is a danger overall to young people, to the elderly. Many people think that's only an issue that affects Texas and Eagle Pass, San Diego, San Isidro. No, this is not only Los Angeles, where it's easy to become absorbed in the LA County population, the diversity of such, but suddenly now you're going even further. Like I said, this is the Martha's Vineyard, and I think it is showing people, take a look at your politics, all these signs around Malibu proclaiming love and beauty and nobody is illegal, etc. I really want to see the response from very woke city leaders and state officials as to how they intend to deal with basically an open border at this point that is causing havoc and is unfair to everybody involved.
Really quickly, was this boatload of illegal immigrants caught? Do we know? Do we know where they were coming from, who they are? What, you know, I heard you with an educated guest on what they're going to do and where they're going to work, but I mean, we don't know. They could be from China. They could be from Iran. Do we know where they caught?
I have not received any updates, but I think to some extent there's a desire not to know, because it really does highlight very high profile in the Martha's Vineyard of California that this is a serious crisis affecting the Biden administration and the failure to secure a border. So I wouldn't be surprised if we don't get the information. Right. There's a desire not to know, to keep it hush and quiet and keep the border open and the misery going.
All right, Gloria, thank you so much for getting up early with us this morning and highlighting this.
Resuming overnight, you see the smoke rising right now from Gaza as they set the stage for a Gaza without Hamas rule. Israel is arranging for a buffer zone within the Strip to protect Israelis from any future attacks. Israeli Defense Forces spokesperson Lieutenant Colonel Peter Lerner joins us now. Colonel, thank you for being here. You know, after this pause, what does the offensive look like? I believe Hamas has effectively abandoned the north. Fighters have surely regrouped in the south. What does it look like next?
So the IDF is indeed engaging Hamas wherever they are. And I would say they are still in the north. There are still areas in the north, in Jabalia, in Sajaiya, in other places around the north that they are still operational. And indeed, we are seeking them out. And as you rightly pointed out, we're conducting airstrikes, engaging. We have, over the last 24 hours, targeted some 400 targets of Hamas, whether it be explosive devices, booby trap locations, command and control positions, staging areas where Hamas are conducting their activities. So yes, we are taking the fight back to them. The operational pause collapsed because Hamas refused to live up to their word, basically, to release the women and children, the 17 women and children that are still being held captive today. And so we are on the offensive. We're taking the fight to Hamas. Indeed, the outcome of this war needs to be two. All of our hostages are brought home, every last one of them. And second, of course, a Gaza Strip that Hamas does not govern as a staging ground for terrorism against Israel and our civilians.
Colonel, you're starting to hear, I know you don't want to get into American domestic politics, but we're starting to hear more calls for a more precise bombing, a different approach. And will you change the way you're operating in that goal of destroying Hamas? I mean, as you move into the South, where a lot of refugees have fled, how do you adapt to that?
We are very attentive to our American allies. Of course, the professional relationship between the military to military is outstanding, I would say even intimate. Of course, we are conducting our operations in order to achieve our goals in accordance to the laws of armed conflict, and indeed conducting those with a distinction between the civilian population, the non-combatants, and the terrorists, Hamas terrorists, that are hiding behind the civilians, the civilian population. What we've seen in the last 2 months now, and 2 months to the day, is a reality where Hamas have extensively, or as a concept of operation, placed their capabilities in mosques, in schools, in hospitals. These are where Hamas's locations are. This is where they're positioning themselves. And we approach these positions within the realm of the laws of armed conflict, exactly in order to minimize the civilian casualties, but to maximize the damage on Hamas as a terrorist entity, as a governing authority, and as a terrorist organization that has no regard for life, Israeli or Palestinian.
Well, no doubt. I mean, they are happy to exploit the West's way of fighting war by using civilians at every aspect. We're now hearing reports that the IDF says 6 of the hostages have died while being held captive in Gaza. How do you keep how do you keep the pressure on while also creating the incentive for Hamas to give up these hostages?
So all of the hostages were released due to one thing, due to the impending military power that we displayed and implemented in the 6 weeks prior to the operational pause. So now we are increasing the pressure. We're engaging Hamas. They know we are coming. We intend on delivering the hostages home. We intend on removing Hamas from controlling the Gaza Strip. And it's very clear that those that were released would not have been released were it not for the IDF's operational actions. This is why the pressure is increasing. This is why we are targeting Hamas. This is why we're targeting their leaders and seeking out from Yahya Sinwar, the mastermind of the massacre of the 7th of October, all that came into our communities on the 7th of October. So we are seeking out the entire organization as a governing authority, as a terrorist entity, but also as the people that are holding our civilians hostage. So it goes hand in hand. Those two goals of the war go hand in hand, and we intend on implementing them both.
Yeah, we continue to pray for the hostages, and I hope you kill every last one of those Hamas terrorists. Lieutenant Colonel Peter Lerner, thank you very much, sir.